grade Mike Elko's first season at Texas A&M, off to a rip-roaring start, and then like so many A&M teams of the past, certainly the ones when I was there under Kevin Sumlin, they collapsed in November. Did that sour your experience under Mike Elko in year one, or were you able to see the positives looking forward?
Yeah, I was not expecting them to be playing for a berth in the SEC championship game at the end of the season, which they had the opportunity to go into that Texas game. So I thought, obviously, the record is not what you want, and they end up losing the bowl game. So the ending to the season, like you said, it's very reminiscent of 2014, 2015, 2016 Texas A&M.
Brutal.
Long live Trevor Knight's collarbone from when he dove over the pylon against Mississippi State.
That one hurts deep.
yeah. I'll never forget it. But I'll give Elko a solid B. I thought he did a good job of making lemonade with not as many lemons as you think he had, because we had this perception of the talent on the roster that he inherited, and that did not match the reality. You want to know why? Look at the list of combine invitees to the NFL draft. Texas A&M only has 3. 3 guys invited to the NFL combine. You know how many Texas has? Texas has 14. So that tells you how much talent is hollowed out on that roster because of how it's been managed. Remember that 2022 recruiting class that was number one of all time?
Sure do.
You know how many guys are still on the roster at this point?
Like 4 or 5, right?
You can count on one hand. I think it's 5. 1,
5.
2, 3, 4. Yeah, no, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 5 or 6. But I'll tell you this. You know how many have transferred out of that? There were 30 guys in that class. You know how many have transferred out? 22.
It's ridiculous.
22 of them have transferred out or have not finished their career there. One is finished. Shamar Stewart's going to the draft. 22 have transferred out, and then the rest are still in the program.
And what if the guys that have transferred out, what have they done elsewhere? Right? I mean, it's not, for the most part.
There's a few. Walter Nolan had a good year at Ole Miss.
Absolutely.
LT Overton had a good
Absolutely.
year at
There's
Alabama.
some gems in there, but the historic class in its grandeur came nowhere close to meeting what we thought it was going to be, right?
Right. And so the reason I bring that up is that 22 class should have been third-year players on campus. That means that should have been, when Elko's team that he took over, that should have been your juniors and your third-year sophomore. That should be the bulk of your team. Like, you're obviously going to have some senior leadership and some guys that are older, but the meat of your roster should have been that class. It's not there. They're not there. They're gone. And so when you watch that opener and they played against Notre Dame and receivers couldn't get open to save their lives, that was when I knew. And, when I bring that up, Evan Stewart, he's at Oregon now. They could have certainly used Evan Stewart on opening night. They could have used Evan Stewart all season. That was a problem. And so when you look at when they go to the portal and they go get Casey Concepcion, and they go to the recruiting class and they go get a 5-star receiver, or they go get a receiver from Mississippi State, or they go get Micah Hudson from Texas Tech. There's a reason for that, because there wasn't a lot of receiver talent. Kudos to Mike Elko for not throwing his team under the bus, but at the end of the regular season, I asked him whether the fact that if they couldn't get receivers open, is that a personnel issue? And it's like, no, it's not. And then you turn around and sign all the receivers. Yes, it is. You're just public. You're not gonna throw your guys under the bus. So hey, kudos to you for your professionalism. But hey, the actions speak louder than words here. So I say all that to say I give them a solid B, because this team is not as talented as we thought it was. They had a really good defensive line talent, which at the same time wasn't as productive as it should have been. They had subpar receiver talent. They did not have elite receivers. And then the quarterback situation was a little bit of a yo-yo, because Connor Wegman's hurt, and then Marcel Reed plays well, but then Connor comes back, and then he blows it out of his Mizzou and looks like we think Connor Wegman will look. And then they bench him, and then you go back to Marcel Reed, who looks fantastic against LSU, and then kind of up and down as we finish the year. But for all that to happen and still be in the conversation to be in the SEC championship game, I thought was pretty solid. So I think it's a solid, good foundational start. And beyond just the on-field results, I think they've done a really good job of rebuilding that roster, because the one thing that I think really hurt A&M coming into this year was that those last 2 years of the Jimbo Fisher era, the roster management was really piss poor. It was lack of utilizing the portal really throughout most of his tenure. He finally went into it his last year just because they didn't have enough scholarship guys and they needed some depth.
Mm-hmm.
But a bad recruiting class, not utilizing the portal, not really balancing the roster in terms of like you're recruiting all these defensive linemen and then you look at your receiver depth and it's not there. Really poor roster management. So Elko took over, I think, a little bit more of a mess than people realize, and I think he did a pretty good job in year one.
I think he's done a tremendous job immediately adding to those position groups, the skill position groups, like you mentioned. I mean, running back is going to be a lot of fun to watch. We'll see what happens along the offensive and defensive lines. They've certainly brought in enough talent to, refill those rooms. And, will Micah Hudson show up? I don't know. We'll see whatever's going on there. I keep hearing people saying he's in College Station. No, he's in Lubbock. It is what it is. We'll see.
Yeah, we need to find that out. I will tell you this: I'm excited about year 2 of Terry Bussey. He only got to play some bit role, but of all the guys in that receiver room that were there last year, he's the one who's got some juice and some electricity that I really like. And so as he gets more adapted to the college game and the scheme, and I know there's a lot of A&M fans down on Colin Klein. I love Colin Klein. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's a great play caller. I think once the personnel fits his scheme a little bit more, I don't think Connor Wegman really fit what Colin wants to do. I think Marcel fits that scheme a little bit better. Mm-hmm. I think as they settle in, some of the stuff that he does in the run game, I think it's going to be really, really effective once they get the hang of it. But I'm excited about Terry Bussey in year 2. I think once he really figures it out, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him.
Shout out to Timpson High School there, Terry Bussey.
That's right. They'll do everything. You want to talk about Mr. Football. That guy did everything except sell popcorn at Timpson.
He was electric to watch and to get to cover. Certainly one of those I was there when guys that I'll tell my kids about.
Gracious him! How about that?